here I am applying it. So it took about, hold on, here's my mom. It took like 3 hours to apply in the morning, would you say? Yeah, I would say. In the beginning it took longer. I used different materials. And then again, as I got more money and was able to pump more money into it, it was less, but they became big stickers. So laminated back, laminated adhesive back and front. Still took about 3 hours to install the whole show from start to finish, which was about a block long and 2 blocks wide. So, and here's one. This is the way that they all look, Betty Crafts. And this is totally off all subjects, but I am just going to include it right now, because sometimes I like to bust some extra shit in, which is, Benny Cress is the one celebrity. He's a local celebrity for Philadelphians who are about 35 and over. And he's recognizable because he had a series of commercials on UHF. And they were these very slapstick, they were kind of vaudeville commercials that were ingrained in the memory of all Philadelphians who are my age, for sure. And this was taken on the last day that the store was open. So this is it's an image that works on different levels, but for Philadelphians it works very specifically because there's something there, it's nostalgic, it relates to place, and it's easily identifiable, but not for all. And I have office hours at the museum, so people come in and they have 15 minutes and they can come in and talk about whatever they want. And his family came in last week, all 3 of his kids and their wives and husbands and his grandkids, to kind of talk about how great they were, very happy that it was in the museum. And he has a list of, there's another image in the show, it starts the show, and it's Benny Crafts holding a canceled check, and on the back of it is a list of prompts for super, super filthy jokes that just, shocking. And his kids said at the funeral, at the memorial, they started to go into his shtick. Like he was at the funeral, like all 3 of the kids started to go back and forth with these jokes that he had all the time, like at the table, and it was this really like kind of beautiful, cathartic moment that they had at the funeral. And it kind of blew my mind that was like, that, you know, the idea of kind of this person in our life kind of also had the relationship with his children that in some ways was accurately as to how I kind of think of him in my own life. That's all. Just thought I would just give that little Benny Crafts story. There you go. Yeah. So this was it. It was a lot of work. Here's Manny, my ever-loving intern. He helped sweep for many, many years. And unfortunately, my internship program happens, and then you're trapped forever. You'll never get out. Oh, look at this. Meltzer, I see you standing over there. How's that going? Yes. How's your lifetime track?
It's good.
Yeah, good. Yeah. That's how it rolls. It's kind of sad, but it's very true. And so each year new photos would come in and old photos would come out. Sometimes photos would move place. That was it. And then as my career moved forward and it wasn't just showing under I-95, my work began to be shown in different places, and I had a number of offers to show it in different spots. And it's unbelievable and so great. I'm still very proud and baffled and anxious about all of it. This show was at the Webster a few years ago, and this was at Bruce Silverstein in New York. This was the last show I had there. And this was a show at the Community Center in South Philadelphia. I think it was 2005. And then right after that was the show at the Whitney Biennial, in which I showed a slideshow. So all of these things happened, and my career kind of just kept moving and moving and moving, but it all just came back to 95. Like every single thing came back to this same installation. So all of these things that I did, which were great and amazing and spectacular, every single one of them came back with the intent to use the photographs or to use the experience in a way to structure this installation. This was it, the whole thing, the whole time. And so that was how it worked. And then following this, I had this museum show, an offer before I-95 was done. The Philadelphia Museum of Art asked me to come and have an exhibition there. And I just say that like it's normal, like a normal kind of statement. It's insane. I can't even begin to talk about it. So it's really it's still difficult, even though it's happening literally right now. I have to kind of live in this moment where I'm both suspending belief of what's happening and also trying to be kind of present and be like, this is amazing. But it has to be both all the time, otherwise I'll just have a nervous breakdown. So, but I mean, that's how life is, but that's really just true. Like, I have to constantly be like, I'm just going to pretend like it's regular. Here's my second book. So, the museum show, which I'm really beyond thrilled about. I'm very happy with the show. I was very happy to work on it. I'm really thrilled with all the components. One of the big components is that there was a book, there's a catalog, and all of the prints were approved here at PPAC. So it was really a pleasure to actually have this kind of contained structure that was community darkroom, our one massive museum, and me, who's from South Philly. Like, it was really kind of a pleasure to bring all of these things together. And so the show has a number of different components. It has a component where it's in the gallery, here's the gallery, and again, all the prints made here. What about that? Awesome, awesome. And the gallery show is great. It's really, it's the best that I could possibly do. And I worked with Peter Barbary, the curator, and we kind of went at it 50-50, and it was a pleasure to be able to work with someone who not just knew my work very well, but also kind of frighteningly knew the inside of my head and many of my anxieties, and was able to keep it tamped down when he knew that I was going to be like, no, stop. And so my interest in having I love the museum very much. It's an important part of my life and always had been an important part of my life, both in my formative years and as a young adult and now. And so I really was very interested in not just having an exhibition within the museum, but kind of talking about the fact that there are real boundaries that prevent people from actually coming to the museum and what it means to transcend those boundaries, and many different aspects about actually exhibiting within an institution and what that means. So one of the things that happened was there was a slideshow projection that was on the outside, the exterior of the building for a number of days when the show opened. And I kind of wanted this permeation of wall, the idea that there would be a kind of, not just transcendence, but a transgression, in which both these images would be seen inside and outside simultaneously. And the images in the slideshow were ones that were in the exhibit inside and on the billboards outside, and ones that were in neither place, ones that could only be seen in this kind of mercurial moment. And then there's a Billboard Project with 54 billboards around the city. And the billboards are all singular, they're all images. There's no text, there's nothing at all to indicate what the image is. It is just solely a photograph. And this one is it's close to my house. It's called La Perrona. It's the one that starts it. This is my neighbor across the street, Antoinette Conti. And she lives directly across the street from me. And this is her next door neighbor. He's going to go up in about 2 weeks, Fernando Trevino. He lives directly next to Antoinette. So here are my two across the street neighbors. We all live within yards of each other on street. And this particular piece is called La Perrona, which it means the crown in both Italian and in Spanish. And it was very important to me to talk about the shifting of the neighborhood in terms of both immigration and migration. And behind the billboard, there's a little cell phone ring that kind of indicates a crown on the wearer. And for me, it was very important. You can see it just a very specific spot when you cross past Young Avenue, that it be a piece that had nothing to do with English, but as opposed to have these two common languages of neighbors who share a wall, one of whom is one of the oldest immigrant groups in South Philadelphia, and one who is the newest, the Mexican-American. And so it was very important to start the Billboard Project with this. And the Billboard Project is very loosely based on the Odyssey, which is also a 10-year journey, and it's both kind of a journey and a homecoming simultaneously. So these are all for people who are traveling, and they are also for people who are residents. So this is for anyone who is coming up past Young Avenue, and it's also for me who was at the Acme earlier today. And that's true of every one of the billboards. This is another billboard, and this one too, the one kissing the baby. And this as well. Many of the billboards have different stories that they are complex and long, and there's reasons for why they all go where they go. This one, the top billboard is an aerial view of 3 Mile Island. The bottom image is a woman holding a shirt. Her husband worked at Rocky Flats, a nuclear munitions plant, and died from cancer. They had a very, they had been possibly the worst nuclear munitions facility in the nation in terms of safety. And workers never got compensation for a lot of it. And so these two were very much about that, and they are directly along the same route as the Pico Power Plant. This one is Expect Everything, and then performance in the parade in Biloxi, Mississippi for Martin Luther King Day. And this one is a hotel room in Atlantic City. This is one I flew to Memphis and drove to Mississippi to make this. It's the crossroads where Robert Johnson was reported to have sold his soul to the devil. So I went specifically to 2 of the places that it had been, where the big Faustian event was supposed to have happened. And for a lot of different reasons, I wanted this very specific, important moment in American history to be at Broad and Erie, the juncture in which there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of structure, and yet it's still kind of a lot of movement. And so it was very specific to choose an additional road that moved forward, and one that had a lot of weight, but you of course don't need to know that at all. You can read it literally just as a road moving forward, but it's very specific in terms of the history of not just American music, but American history. This is the room where Bessie Smith died. These are 2 women kissing in Nevada. This photo is taken by Sandra, who works with my lady, and this is right in the Richmond Diner. And this is one of the images that's in the show, that's in the Philadelphia Museum Park show, that was printed, and then I made them print it again here at PBJC because I was like, that's not the right color. And not only did they do it, it's so awesome, I don't know what to do, so thank you. Who did, Sarah here? Sarah, yeah. Christopher? Who did it? Who changed it? Christopher. Christopher, thank you. Success. Oh, I can't see it. So outside, here's this, right? This is a variation, it's a different image. It's not the same image. None are the same. Some are the same moment, some are the same places, but none are the same images. And it was very specific, so you have to leave the museum to see the billboards, and you have to come to the museum to see the show. And this is inside the Richmond Diner, where I stopped and I talked, I sat at the counter and talked to people and dropped off a lot of stuff, information about the Billboard Project, the movement. And it's a waitress and a guy named Richard. The guy named Richard worked at Lansing Prison, which is where Antoinette is. So he's going to make a trip to see that. And a big component of the Billboard Project is that because it's based somewhat around the Odyssey, there's an oral tradition that goes along with this, that it is sitting and talking about it. And you still make whatever you will out of these, but part of my own job is to go to the places where all the billboards are and talk about why I chose them and why I wanted them there and what they mean to me and how they're open to interpretation. So I will be happy to see Richard when he's swinging by in South Philly.